through the lot, now you know I'm coming through. When the growth look good on you, best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep feeling it.
What is going on, people? What is going on? It's G, and you know what time it is. You know what it is. We are back in the building, and today we're here for another summer transfer targets. So, guys, before, obviously, you already know the vibes. Before we even dive into anything, please make sure you smash a like. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are brand new. Hopefully we've got some more people returning. Hopefully we get some new subscribers. Just like to say quickly before we start, big up everybody. We passed that 500 subscriber mark. Proper appreciate it. Really do. Honestly, I speak to quite a lot of you, obviously off air. Speak to a lot of you on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, YouTube and stuff like that. We interact on shows, on different shows, and I love the conversations, man. Whether we agree, disagree on any of the opinions, honestly, guys, I don't even care about that. What I care about is you guys teach me things. You know what I mean? You guys teach me a few bits and bobs. You put me in my place at times. Do you know what I mean? Especially when I need it. You guys are able to do that, and I love the engagement. So I just want to say big up everybody for obviously smashing that subscribe button. And the next target obviously is 1,000, but we'll worry about that another time. So today, you guys can obviously see on your screen, Castello Lukeba plays for Lyon, centre back, left-sided centre back. So of course he is on the radar. Very good individual. Someone who's really comfortable on the ball. Very good in 1v1 situations. Technically sound, if I'm being totally honest with you, and I think he might be the type of player that Liverpool should be. Well, you know, I've heard a few reports here and there, you know, at Lyon, in terms of the players that we might potentially be interested in. Obviously, one of them would be Bradley Barcola, but Lukeba is actually one player I think Liverpool should potentially be going in for. Now, a lot of these players that we're looking at, or I've looked at here, you know, the transfer target show is, you know, if I had my way, the list would be totally different. You guys already know that. And you probably have your own list where you're thinking, nah, let's get this guy, let's get that guy. And fair play. But of course, we know who our owners are. We know who Jurgen Klopp is. We know what type of players he kind of would work with and wouldn't work with and stuff like that. So, of course, I mentioned this before, you know, I'm not going to go out and say, yeah, let's get Jamal Musiala, or let's just go all out for Vardial and stuff like that, because I know that that might just eat our entire budget. And we've obviously got a raft of positions, in my opinion, and a raft of roles where we need to fill coming into the new season if we're looking to actually get back to challenging. Now, a lot of people have obviously spoken, you know, a lot of people, you know, talk about certain players, and, you know, they mention, you know, we've got Kefren Turam that we're looking at, Gravenberch, Viega, you know, we've got in McAllister already. Do you guys feel that these are players that get you to challenge, or do you feel that these are players that maybe in 2-3 years they'll get you there? And that's kind of, excuse me, that's kind of my thinking with a lot of the players that I am currently looking at, is more so, these are more players that I don't think we're really going to go out there. Listen, I would love it if we did, but I don't think we're realistically going to go out there and, you know, sign these ready-made players. It seems like Jurgen Klopp wants to go out there and sign players who are, as we know, players who are just below that kind of level where they're ready. They're not really ready at this current moment in time, but they could potentially get there. They've got the potential. They've got the ability. He feels that he can potentially work with them. So, you know, those are the kind of players I'm always going to look at, because fortunately, unfortunately, that's just what we've been conditioned to kind of accept, if I'm being totally honest with you. And you know, it's worked to a certain degree, but, you know, it would be nice, if I'm being totally honest with you, if we would go out there and sign some ready-made players, you know, players who can come into the squad and are ready to win today. Not players who are ready to win in 2 years, not players who are ready to win in 3 years, you know, kind of thing, like we've done in previous years. You know, if you look at all the signings realistically been made under Jurgen Klopp, outside of what, maybe Fabinho and Naby Keita, none of them were signed and we won immediately, because they were players who were just not ready, you know. So it kind of depends on which side of the fence that you kind of want to that you kind of want to be on, in terms of it's good, to be able to get players with potential. It's very good to also get young players with that level of potential to, be able to come into a squad. But you also need to be able to mix that with some level of experience. And that's something I think Liverpool don't do enough. I think the only real one, if I'm being honest with you, is probably Thiago, player who has outstanding qualities and is ready to come into a side to win now. But, it is what it is. That's just how we do business. It's just one of them kind of things. So moaning about it won't really get us anywhere. But as I mentioned today, obviously we're here to talk about Lukeba. Now, Lukeba obviously playing for Lyon this season. And the reason why I chose him is because obviously for me, I feel we do need to sign a left-sided centre-back. I think, that might be something that it's going to help us into the season. It's going to help us because we've only realistically, if we're playing with the three at the back anyway, we've only got Robbo there who can do that role. I don't think Tsimikas would fit that kind of role. So whether you get him in to then, rotate with Robertson and then potentially take over, remains to be seen. But I feel that in that area, and I've mentioned this 100 times, in the right centre back and the left centre back roles, you need to have players who are comfortable. You need to have players who are also comfortable at defending out wide. And at the moment, I'm just not really seeing that, with players like Robbo or Konate. Now, both have their strengths. Now, Robbo is someone who's really good at getting himself forward. So in a left wing back position, fantastic. You get him into that position. I'm not fussed with that. But in the left centre back role, it should be a different type of game. But unfortunately, the way that Jurgen Klopp is kind of playing it, it's just not really matching up, to be honest with you. And again, he's alluded to the fact that, Robbo and his discipline and stuff like that. And again, really the same side for the right centre-back. Only difference is that Konate is not someone who marauders forward, but is having to do extra work out there on that right centre-back position because he's covering two roles, whereas when you've got the three at the back, you shouldn't necessarily be covering two roles. You have your one role that you should actually be covering. And there should also be someone dropping in and, helping out in the defense and all these kind of various different things. These are all things that I believe we should be doing, but we're not doing. Hence the reason why, it's going to be quite taxing on a lot of these players. And I envisage that we'll still get the same give or take level of injuries next season if we don't actually just get the right players in there. Now, Lukeba isn't someone who is a marauding player. Of course, he's played, centre back. He's played in a back four, he's played in a back three, and the centre back is obviously the position that he will always play in, and it's the position I think he's best at. But he could also play left back if needed. If needed, I have confidence that he could play in that position. But again, that's where you then got Robbo. That's why you've got a Tsimikas. Players who that is their prime position. So it just all depends on what Jurgen Klopp kind of wants to do. But Lukeba is definitely one player I think, we should definitely be looking at. Now you can see here, big up 11 stats. Make sure you guys obviously head over there, check them out. Obviously they've got here his position in 96% of the time. He's playing as the left centre back, can play in the middle. I wouldn't say he can play on the right. He is predominantly left footed. So, I wouldn't put him out there on that right hand side. When we look at his stats, obviously from the 22-23 season, just finished 38 games. He's played in all competitions, 2 goals. So he's someone who he plays a lot. He plays lots of games. He's quite integral to that Lyon team as well, and he's one of their better, if not, again, subjective. I would say one of their better centre backs, if not the top 2. Out of the potential 3 that they might play at the back there, and I think he's definitely a player who's ready for that next move and that next step up. You can see here by his heat map as well, over on that left-hand side. Again, you can see it kind of stops a little bit just after the halfway line. And that is exactly what I want to see from my left centre-back and right centre-back. I don't want to see my left centre-back bombing forward on a consistent basis. You can go there sometimes, of course, some in certain matches and, in certain transitions, we're going to need you potentially on that side, for whatever reason. And that's absolutely fine. Problem with Robbo is his one is so predominantly on that left and it's all up and down the wing. You think he was still playing left wing back when the reality is that shouldn't realistically be the case. It should, again, my opinion, it should look a little something like this from a left centre back, or obviously, if you think about it from the right hand side, it should look exactly like that. These are the areas that you want your centre backs, because that's what they are, just wide centre backs. These are the areas that you kind of want them in. And with Lukeba, he's good at playing in these kind of areas. We look at his passing, stats for the season. You know, like I mentioned before, he is relatively comfortable, you know, on the ball. Accurate passes per game, 59 accurate passes per game, which is quite high, you know, and 90% accuracy rate, you know, accurate in his own half, 39 to 94. So again, he is still passing in the opposition half as well. So, you know, it's something to, you know, look at. Opposition half 20, you know, 84% long balls. He can do them. He does about 2 a game, you know, 50%. And then accurate chip passes, obviously a bit less at 45%. And, you know, I'm looking at all of these kind of stats and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? If you can get that, if you could get Robbo to play in that kind of style, in that kind of way, you might see things a little bit differently, and you might see a more coordinated backline, a backline that is, you know, a bit balanced. At the moment, it's so unbalanced. At the moment, you know, it's just, in my opinion, it's just so all over the gaff that it just looks weird and a bit flip floppy at times. So, you know, maybe just Robbo just can't do that role, and that's fine because Robbo is a left back. You know, what I mean, I don't want to get onto Robbo because he's been amazing for Liverpool throughout his time here, but ultimately, if we're playing in a different way, you can't play in that way, unfortunately. So you know what, maybe get someone, you know, potentially who can do that. And, you know, I would love to get like an Inacio or Levi Colwill kind of thing, but ultimately we got to start looking at other options and other players who can do that role and can do that role quite efficiently. Lukeba is definitely one of those players who can do that. When you're looking at, you know, his style of play, see here, just talking about, you know, the type of player he is and, you know, what he does well. He rarely goes to grounds, preferring to use his physical presence and intelligence to ensure he is in the right place at the right time. He possesses a good amount of pace and is able to remain calm and composed, which means he is able to defend 1v1 situations very well. Now, that for me, again, is very, very key. One, obviously, I would probably say he was on my radar when Liverpool played against Lyon in that Dubai Cup, and watching his performance in there, you know, especially on that left hand side, I was quite shocked, to be honest with you, because didn't really know too much about him. You know, French youth international, so they've got a million players that, you know, we just won't ever see, or we won't see till, you know, later on in time, because they're so stacked in near enough every position. But watching him in that game, I just felt this guy's super comfortable, man. He's so comfortable on the ball. He's very, very quick. As I mentioned there, he's got the recovery pace. So if he does lose the ball, or he mistimes a challenge kind of thing, he can get back in position. Now, he's not the best when it does come to aerial duels. That's definitely one thing that he probably need to, you know, I think he stands at around 6'1". So that's maybe something that he's going to need to, he's okay at it. I think it's just over 50% of aerial duels that he wins. So maybe that might be something to potentially look at in terms of a weakness. But when we're looking at him on the ground and being able to defend in those kind of spaces, because he's so calm and composed, nothing is rash. Nothing is over the top. Nothing is overzealous, and I love that because it shows that you've got that little bit about you where you're not worried, you're not stressed about certain situations. And when players are stressed about certain situations, you see it in their game. You know, when you see like a Konate having to go out to positions that he's maybe not just as comfortable in, it starts to get a little bit, all over the gaff, and that's not necessarily his fault. That's just because, again, if you're not that comfortable in those positions, that's kind of what it's gonna look like, so to speak. So, it is just one of those kind of things. But continuing on, he doesn't rush into things. He doesn't sell himself too easily. Rather, he remains calm and trusts in his physical and technical ability to control the situation and prevent the attack from developing to a critical stage. Excuse me, guys, I needed that. When the time comes to act more aggressively, Lukeba's prior actions ensure he's in the best position to be aggressive and successfully end the opposition's attack, despite the high level of danger associated with an opponent. And again, like I say, someone who's positionally aware, where he's got that football IQ to understand where he needs to be, in which moments he needs to be in those certain positions. Again, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, fantastic, because more often than not, sometimes you might be amazing at defending and stuff like that, but if you haven't got the positional sense and you don't really understand where you need to be, you'll be undone anyway. It doesn't matter about how great you are actually defending, because you're not in the right place to actually defend anyway. So you're going to get yourself caught out. So again, he ticks that box for me in terms of what I would like to see, from a left-sided centre, or even just from the wide centre backs, in terms of what they should be tasked to actually do. Because I just think even the way that we played in the last 12 games, or I think it was 12 games of the season when Jurgen Klopp moved to this system, Short term, that was a great fix. Long term, we cannot play that way. In my opinion, I don't see Liverpool being able to continuously play that way for a full season and it's going to reap the rewards. I don't see that happening. We'll get cut open more often than not over a long period of time. Short term, of course, yeah, no problem. It can work and this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. But when you start getting certain players in there, I promise you guys, and I will die on this hill. I'm not talking just necessarily about just Lukeba, but I genuinely believe if you're able to get the right players in the right positions, like any team, like any club. You see at Manchester City that, getting Kovacic in kind of thing, right player, getting into the right positions. I believe they even want to play him in that kind of attacking midfield position between the midfield and the striker, obviously Haaland. That might be the best, but I don't know yet, but it could be the best position for him because you're going to utilize his skills. Let's stop trying to put players into position because you think in terms of their potential physical attributes that, oh, they can just do a job there. I don't want players who can just do a job. I want players to play their actual natural positions, be comfortable in those positions, and you will reap the rewards long term. Short term, it might work either way kind of thing in terms of just the element of surprise more than anything. But in terms of long term goals, I feel that you would see that. And Lukeba, again, another player. And he's been outstanding for Lyon, this season. So as I mentioned, he's been one of their better, if not best defenders this season. So he's really coming along in his development. I do think he is ready for that next level, that next stage. And even if you do want to continue with Robbo, in that position, then again, you've got someone who's quite adequate enough to be able to fill in when we need to rotate, when we need to swap out. We've got Europa League, cup games and all that next season. This might be the season where you go out and if you are going to get these potential players, this might be the season to really bed them in. And then the following season, I know another way, but the following season, that's where we really start seeing, how good these players, realistically are. Now, I've got here, I'll take this banner off for you guys. So I've got here Lukeba versus Van der Veen. And the reason why I got that is obviously Van der Veen is the guy that we're quite heavily linked with. So, I wanted to kind of compare the two and, just to see, in reality, are we getting the better player, so to speak. Again, go out and watch these guys. Van der Veen is currently with the under-21s for Holland. They played the other day. I don't know if Lukeba is with the under-21s. I'm not 100% sure. But if he is, again, watch him. But if not, go and watch some games from Lyon in this last season. When we're looking here, they're pretty even in most stuff. There's some stuff Van der Veen who's on the right. You can see he's better than, if you look at the top kind of the top graphs and stuff like that, the assists and stuff like that, Van der Veen is a lot better. Maybe that just might be just due to the system and everything like that, but he is a lot better than Lukeba in that department. But when I'm looking at, passes attempted, pass completion, progressive passes, again, I'm looking, Lukeba looks like he's a better fit in that kind of situation. Could be a little bit different, but, he looks like he's the better fit. So is that what you want necessarily? From your defenders. Again, we don't know what Klopp realistically wants with the amount of players that we've been linked to. So this is just more my opinion on who I think would be better fit. I look at the interceptions there, 99th percentile. I look at Van der Veen's interceptions. That is poor. 0.79 in comparison to the 2.26 from Lukeba. I'm more inclined to now go, a bit more with Lukeba if I'm thinking even defensively, to be honest with you. Even the successful take-ons and progressive carries, Van der Veen is a lot better in that kind of department. But again, is that just another Robbo kind of thing? Is he going to be playing that kind of role, where he just wants another Robbo in that position, where who's just going to keep bombing up and doing all that kind of stuff? If so, then you probably would lean more towards Van der Veen. But if you're actually going to get the left centre-back to, play the role of a left centre-back, I'm leaning more towards Lukeba, to be honest with you. And just looking here at some of the stats between the two players this season, you see ground duels contested. Van der Veen's obviously coming out on top in terms of the success rate and things like that. Again, interceptions, Lukeba is obviously weighing quite heavy on that one. But in terms of the ground duels, it's not too much off each other, but ultimately Van der Veen is doing a lot better in that department. Fouls conceded per game, that's something Lukeba is going to have to, work on. Because at times he's one of those kind of players that, as much as he's cool, calm, and collected, he is also a player that I feel like he's someone who always feels like he can win a challenge kind of thing. So at times he will try and put his best foot forward. And that's not always, the best thing, for him, kind of thing. We're looking here, aerial duels contested, 66 to 69, but we look at the success rate from both players. Even though I did mention that Lukeba does need to improve a little bit, it is still better than Van der Veen's, and it's only what Van der Veen's made 3 more, in totality. Moving on, passes. Again, this is where Lukeba does really, really well. His passing accuracy, 90%. Van der Veen's is pretty decent at 88%. Long passes attempted. Van der Veen's doing a lot more. Again, I think maybe I shouldn't have put long passes in, but I think that's just more just due to the tactics of the team. But again, ultimately, Van der Veen's obviously doing better in that regards. And then duels contested in matches. Again, this is more going to come down to the team and how your team plays and who your team is, context of where they are in terms of the stature of the teams and the teams that they're coming up against. 196 to 213. Tackles made per game, 39 to 45. Fouls conceded, it's basically the same. Take-ons, Van der Veen's obviously got a lot. He's got a lot more than Lukeba, and unsuccessful take-ons. Obviously, he would have less. But the take-on success is 68 to 72. So, it's relatively close there. It's relatively close in terms of when you're looking at them statistically. So I think they're both 2 different type of centre backs, or wide centre backs, if you want to call them that. I think they will both be doing a different type of role in the team. I think you're getting a Lukeba for the composure, the calmness on the ball, the technical ability, the positional awareness. I think that's who you'll get him for. Whereas I feel with Van der Veen, it's more of the physical attributes. He can play a little bit, of course. I don't want to be too disingenuous, but I feel you're only really getting him in for that kind of physical attribute. So again, it really just does depend on how Jurgen Klopp wants to play these players, how he wants to play these players, and you take it from there. But guys, let me know in the comment section, what do you think? Is Lukeba someone that you think Liverpool should be looking at? Would you prefer us to just continue, just trying to get a Van der Veen kind of thing? They're both relatively on the same kind of level. For me, though, Lukeba does just edge it just that little bit in terms of what I would want from my left centre-back. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. That's the summer transfer targets done and dusted, and we are out.